Next. Can I find the corner where the internet is working? Oh.
Okay, good. I have all the information. Oh, so you are sparkling too. Yes, yes. Great. All right. Make it easy, make it fun.
Someone see Martin? Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Oh, this is telephone there, I think, so not power. There's,
Yeah.
there's a plugs are over there if you want to see if I can. They work. The plugs
I don't know what.
Who's hanging on this?
I don't know. Don't worry. We can open the window. We can.
Is ever open?
No. Yeah, but we should open it. We did it yesterday.
So we even have two phones here.
Yeah. Just to be sure. This one is live already. This one.
Yeah.
So this one is live. This one is recorded.
Okay.
You are sure.
Who in this room has never done Sparkle before? Okay. And who in this room is kind of a bit experienced with Sparkle? Okay.
A bit.
Yeah. It's probably good to mingle a bit so that you sit next to experienced, non-experienced together.
Yeah, this is not. This is going to be a real workshop. So
Yes.
get out your laptops. If you don't have a laptop, work with someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to show a couple of things. I hope there's a mixture of people who are already a bit experienced, so you can help each other. Because we're basically going to do lots of queries on your own laptop. And, so if you don't have a laptop, this might not be the best session to go to.
Move to someone who has a laptop next to. Oh, tablet. Mingle people. Move. Maybe not internet. There's no place at on the internet. We'll find a way.
Morning. You need your laptop for the workshop.
Sparkle's there.
No, it's this is a workshop, so you need a laptop or sit with someone who has a laptop.
Everyone has internet?
Yeah, so you can sit with someone else who has a laptop. Don't work together anyway. So I think we're all full, right?
Yeah.
There's one space in the back, two in the high end.
No, because I stay here and when I'm get bored, I can sit up and
Let's start.
stop.
Yeah. So, good morning everyone. We're going to do Sparkle. This is going to be a really hands-on workshop. So, some people already have quite a bit of experience with Sparkle. So, let's start from the bottom up. Ooh, good morning. Yeah. Who has never done anything with Sparkle? So, a couple of people. So, make sure we're quite evenly divided. So, who just played around with it a little bit and was a bit scared like it with it? Yeah, okay, so you had a look at it. And who is getting a bit confident, you made multiple queries and you just want to improve on it. Yeah. And who is like really a Sparkle ninja with all the... Yeah. So I see 3 people say you're really good at Sparkle, maybe we should swap around a bit. Because Edward and... Yeah, there's 2 seats in the back. And you need a laptop for the workshop, or you need a friend with a laptop next to you. So maybe Sam has a laptop. Or, and someone can sit over there, but you have to be careful with PowerPoint. So let's first URL of Sparkle Engine. It's on top of the page, query.wikidata.org. You should open it on your laptop. That's the only website we're going to use. You can make it bigger if you like.
Yeah. The URL is the same size.
Yeah. I just think to work on the side again.
No, that's one.
Yeah, but it's a small screen. So this is our Sparkle engine. It gives access to all the data we have in Wikidata, and to get an idea what's possible, you can click on the examples and just look for a query that we consider nice. For example, I think we have lots of cats, but I'm also in the developer community, so I like goats more. So that's just an example query. Just pick one you like. Example one, there are hundreds in there. So these are my query. I found this famous goats. Then I know everyone has found the query engine, and pick an example, look at it, and see what you can find. Did everyone find the query engine? Everyone set up? Huh? A lobby, you can just example 2023 at example.com, and the password is example 2023.
Example 23?
You can just dismiss the login screen.
Yeah, that was it. I just put in the dummy account.
Example what?
Yeah, I just made a dummy account, it doesn't matter. It won't check your email address, so you can just throw something in there.
To go for one example, so cats example, or what did you say?
You can just make something up. They don't check. So I used example something. Oh, sorry. I thought you meant the white example. You can top left.
Yeah. Show again where you can find the example queries.
Use box with examples.
That's what I was.
And so you can do, for example, airports or maps of hospitals. I don't know. It's probably going to be a big one. Just to see if you all get the query engine connected.
And everyone is aware that in order to get the results, you have to
Yeah, you
push
have
the blue button.
the blue button to.
Yes.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you click on examples there, you pick one, and click on the blue button.
Yeah.
So is everyone connected to the wireless? Found the query engine. Yeah, so easiest way if you're playing around with Sparkle is to take one of the examples that looks like your use case and to modify it. But we can start a bit with just a query from scratch. So if you empty out the page like this, you can just type Sparkle. In Sparkle, it looks a bit like SQL for the people who work with databases in their professional life. It only looks like it. That's about as similar as it is. So like me, who has an access or a background in computer science, was very confident with SQL. So I didn't get Sparkle for a while until I realized that I should just forget about SQL and treat it as a new language. So it's a select. You can do select star. It's all the fields. Where? Oh, where? So and between the brackets there will be what we are looking for. The Sparkle for you mostly use the curly brackets for a subsection where you put things in, and we can just say, for example, A, B, C.
Yeah.
What are those then?
Variables. So if you have a question mark with a word or a string, that means that you assigning a variable to it. And very important, always add a limit, because if you don't add a limit, you'll get everything. And in this case, we have no restrictions on what we are asking. We say select whatever field you found, A, B, C, and limit it to 10. And you would expect, so we get 10 records, actually the first 10 triples of our database. It's just a bit of meta information about, it's Wikidata, so the license is CC0, and some other very non-interesting information. So please try that, see if you can get your first query.
Does it matter when we click select where it matches in uppercase and lowercase?
So the keywords like select, where, limits, they're case insensitive. So you can it's by convention use uppercase, but the variables are case sensitive. So if you mix up the variables like A with lowercase and A uppercase, it will be seen as different variables. Often if you have queries that are suddenly really slow or you don't get the expected results, you might have mixed that up.
And is the dot compulsory?
In this case not, but in the dots, by using the dot you say there's more stuff coming. If you don't add it, it will just see it as one line, and then it will refuse the syntax. So for example, if I would go further, like C, D, E, oh, E. Now it works, but if I do this, it will complain like, hey, I don't get it. You'll get this red bar a lot when you're playing around with Sparkle.
Every day.
And you see that it highlights where it goes wrong. So basically, this part is correct, and here you get the red thing because the query engine is like, I don't understand it anymore. You were saying something useful, and at this point I lost you. So if you do like point, then we get more stuff.
How can I insert a comment? Some notes,
yeah.
some personal note into the program?
You can use like this. This is a comment.
Okay,
And
thank you.
And that's a good idea to put a lot of comments. For
Especially-
yourself, but for others too.
Yeah,
And again, what was the idea behind A, B, and C? Why did we get these results?
A, B, and C are just random variables. So you could do
But
anything.
we are aiming with this query.
Basically showing that we can do a query.
Yeah. Nothing useful here.
Nothing useful yet.
Just demonstrating.
So
For the syntax purpose to learn
Yeah.
bit by bit.
So-
Trust us, go along the way.
we can do something a bit more useful. Any suggestions on what we want to find? So maybe people or things or
My neighbor has
Dissertation.
it's a bit easier.
We had one in the keynote, the human brains.
The human brains.
Actually, there are
Instances of human brain.
There
We
seem
can
to
do
be
that.
3 instead of 2. Only
Yeah.
2 instances.
Yeah, that's
There is a surprise.
so I I usually use the variable item for when I'm getting things. It has to do that some of the tools built on top of Sparkle expect a field named item in the response. So if you use that, you can, things like you might have seen Listeria, it's a tool to make nice tables on the wiki, or you can use that. But we're looking for a human brain. So we say item.
But we're looking where we find it, or because that's where, not.
Yeah, so
We could also say who.
no,
Select
no,
who.
where is just a
Always.
construct. Yeah. It's
I'm sorry?
you say
Would you mind?
you want to have that field.
I should move because this is
from
not.
that.
I'm sorry.
So
Live stream? Yes.
WDT is
I'm
the
new to
prefix
it.
you use for properties, the simple properties. And there's a really
no
nice
one is watching.
support in the Sparkle engine. Now you call
Yeah,
it
no
one.
one is
there.
watching.
Yeah, I understand.
Anyway.
And now I can just type instance of. And here the magic comes in, press Ctrl and then your spacebar. I think it even works on, and then it will suggest the properties. So instead of having to remember all the PIDs, the QIDs, whatever, you can just type things and it will offer what you're looking for.
Actually, it works with selector.
Yeah.
But it doesn't offer unpaid.
So if you get stuck, just raise your hands and look at people around you.
WGT stands?
That's WD is Wikidata.
Ah, okay.
So all the prefixes basically start with WD, and C is I think term.
WDT is for property.
And we need to have an item.
There you go.
Do you want notes or like
Okay, here's a really good, no pressure, I just thought you were gonna. No worries. If you ever use Sparkle anything, I'll do it for you.
Have you ever come across the case where that key combination has been mapped to something else?
Yeah, in IMAX, for instance.
Yes, do you have a tip? Do you have a tip?
No, I've seen it, and I've seen the answer.
Could you repeat the question maybe?
So the question, if control space doesn't work, so we're using that, but there's also the query helper. So, show query.
Yeah, I use that.
And so those are two different ways of building a query. So we now, did everyone get this? So we asking the query engine, give me instance of human brain. Let's see what we get. Three, I thought it was two, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they said
Now, that's
So what's the third one? Nope. I don't know why it's showing so.
Interesting.
Yes.
We have a picture?
Yeah, there is.
There's a picture of my
Oh, what a
Oh. Polls have been busy.
And who's next?
So we can expand the query because we want images, right? So you can say on another line, give me those items, because it's the same variable, which have an image. And I use control space again to get the property for image. And I put it in the variable image because that's convenient, right?
So
I
is
don't,
this like
I
an
don't
ant?
get the last bit now.
Sorry?
The variable image.
So here I say, so in the first line I request all the brains.
Yeah.
And the second line I say, okay, I want only the items, have the property P18, so image, and put the contents in variable image. So here, if you look at the results, we have a variable item.
Yeah.
And if I run the query now,
And then what you can do is
We get a-
start typing in things.
Another
I
table.
don't understand how you can put the queue number for the WPA.
Control space, yeah, control space.
And then control space again for.
Brain won't work. Here we're looking for human brain. Sometimes.
Yeah, so there's
Not hesitate to raise your hand.
I'm sorry.
We can play.
Classifying the brain of people, right?
Sorry.
Classifying brain of people. They only find Einstein.
Readout.
They only have Einstein.
But did you try the brain or human brain?
It just says there's no line comment.
How do I get the name of these people then? No legal name.
This is another point. I think it will talk about that. There's a specific service for that. I think it's good, more or less.
Yeah.
I'm honoring.
So do some decentral queries right now? Just people looking up things. I hear
Web service first.
Oh, yeah. The label source.
Yeah, label service.
Yeah.
Why is the second line not item has a image? If that makes sense. So it's item here. On the second line.
Second line.
Click on image.
No,
P18.
No, just P31.
The top one is saying item is an instance of a human brain.
Yeah.
Why
There you go.
the second one is it not saying item
No.
has a image?
Yeah,
It
no
says item
items you
image.
select in the first line.
There you go. And
So you restrict it more.
So now try running it again.
But I know it's not that, but what,
So now
if I was, maybe I'm thinking of SQL smoke, but why is it not item has an image? Or what it says item image, what's the second image?
It's the variable
The
that
value.
contains the image.
Yeah, it's variable. So I can just put
So if you
something
wanted
like
a list of those images, you could produce it that way.
this is the image.
Ah, okay.
Then you see
Is
here
it-
in the bottom, this is the image variable.
Yeah, okay, so it's loading up into.
Yeah, so see, that goes to that
And
column.
maybe it was not clear for everyone, but when you are adding line on line,
All in one.
the results are true for all the lines. You are more and more selective. It will not give me something with image or a brain, it's and the brain. It's cumulative. If it
So for
makes sense.
example, if we go to something much broader like humans,
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I think there is always an end statement between the lines.
so we have over 2 million humans, I guess, on Wikidata. And
4 million.
4 million, yeah, lots of them. So these are just the first humans that we'll find. And as you can see, you see a lot of very low QIDs, so they're probably one of the first items of big Wikipedia articles. And then if you want to restrict it more, so for example, let's say we only want females, we can say gender, and the gender is female. So you can add more and more restrictions to it.
But always close with dot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the last dot isn't actually necessary, but I'm just used to it because then I can just continue typing. So now we just have the first couple of females. And so you can add more and more restrictions. Say, for example, you only want the females from the country you're from. So item. And we have country of citizenship. And
Israel, for instance.
yeah, Israel. Then we only have, judging from the Hebrew, that's
It
not
should be
correct.
good.
Yeah. So you can zoom in even more and more on the subject set you work on.
But this limits us to the first 10. How will we know what is the exact number? Like this is 10 out of how many?
Yeah, so I could remove the limit, but
Yes, yes, but
Try it.
at
Yeah.
least
Can you do a count?
Can you just
Or
count?
you can do a count, but you can count it. So it's also possible to say do a query, but instead of giving me the result, just give the number of the results.
Yeah.
And how to make
Can you show
these
us?
names translated?
Yeah, so I'll show the first how to add the labels because
Yeah.
QID and this is not very useful. But
Not for human at least.
Huh?
Not for human at least.
And this is a search just in English Wikipedia?
No,
Or
it's a
also
search.
provides results from French?
No, it's only on Wikidata. So
Okay.
it's not on Wikipedia, it's on Wikidata. So every
Yes, sorry.
Wikipedia,
In Wikidata in all
everything.
In our language.
Yeah, it's language neutral.
Okay.
And of course, if you look for people from Israel, there's a big chance that they will have a link to the Hebrew Wikipedia or the English Wikipedia. And if you look for people in the Netherlands, you'll probably get a link to the Dutch Wikipedia. That's just the domain you're working on. So what was, I usually copy the service label for something, but guess we're waiting to insert it, right?
You can control space it and so.
Control space. It's magic every time.
Okay.
So it's
Just begin service.
there it is.
Yeah.
So,
Oh!
yes.
Yes.
Oh my god, the number of times I've looked for that one. Ah!
So basically, control space is the one you're using all the time. So we're going to add the service.
Ah!
And this is a bit of a trick, but
Yeah.
so now I get the star here, but I can also just specify exactly which variables I want. I change this back to image because otherwise. The label service, you close this for a while, otherwise queries. The label service here, which you can insert with the control space. Did everyone manage to do that? So you do
Control space doesn't
control
work
space
for
and then
me. It
service.
changes the language.
And you see that's the second selection.
Is it a Mac? No.
It crumbles.
Maybe alt space or something. I don't know.
Is it possible to ask someone to open the air condition or some kind
Yeah,
of
because
Yeah, there's like one
ventilation?
here. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe open the door to.
Very loud.
Yeah.
There's some
We're going to make more noise than the downstairs. So the label service is a convenience thing for you. There's go away. It will help you get the labels of an item. You could also do that directly in Sparkle, but then you have to like add 4 or 5 lines, and it's very complicated. And in this case, it will just give a label, and it will always put it in the same field as the item, or so the variable you have there, with label attached to the variable name. So we talked before that it's case sensitive. So now I add the label. Now we should let's see, we got the label here. But if you accidentally do it lowercase, then you wonder like, why do I have an empty field? Because it's case sensitive.
It does completion, doesn't it?
Yeah. So did you manage to get the females?
Or whatever you want.
So we have Sander here to help you out if you don't manage, and Plus and Jean-Fred is also a backup here. Now,
Plan D. Plan E. F.
Sander, can you see this?
Sorry, can you repeat why we use service?
So we want to. So the question is why we using service. That's because we want to get the label of the item. You could do it using Sparkle, but it's very complicated. So the service is a convenience way to get it. It's just one line and
So
you get labels.
without that, I wouldn't get labels because I always copy paste. Yeah, you know, Spark, and I always get that line, but I've never understood why. So and then if I want the label in like multiple languages in different volumes? How do you get that?
It's not possible to use this service. You have to explicitly ask live
But you can explicitly choose a language. Like you can put language ES. Yeah, but you can do that.
Can you also get the description and the aliases?
Yes, you can.
So for example, you can force it to another language.
Yeah,
With gender female and description.
Yeah,
Maybe it's just going to be item description.
No. Martin, can you get the description as well?
the alias.
And the aliases? I think so too. Like,
Because when we go to a service level, you have only two numbers. That's good for matching, not for you.
Okay, what happened with my question?
Doesn't get yours, but next level questions.
at the end, label.
If I forgot,
And now it's just the label.
Yeah, that makes sense because the images are file names.
yeah, it can with data type.
I would have to look it up.
Variable comes with different data type. This can be a string for a file or anything.
Very standard, no? On Nicola. Okay. So you know if you can choose the description?
Female is not equal to female.
No, what doesn't, when you do a line,
Q number.
If I just want a huge
no, what you, the column you
How to have another column with another language.
So
Side by side.
Female and human, but the gender female is
Ah, okay.
the other one is a woman, it's for female and woman. It's more specific, I think.
Schema description or something. I'll check it. Yeah, can you check the description? Okay. Excuse me, the description?
No, not that.
Yeah. The description?
Yes.
Schema.
No, much simpler.
You
Instead of
see how
level,
it gets
you put
the
description.
label in the manual way? Oh, so you see now that you get the labels in multiple languages.
Add one item.
Yeah, now I have it.
Yeah. And then you can filter by language, but it's a bit more complicated.
But this returns the same results. Here.
Yeah, because the labels will be the same in a lot of languages.
Yeah, probably.
So probably someone copied the English label to a lot of other languages. So if you look at the icon, you see that it's all the same labels.
Okay, yeah. Because you also have it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have something in the...
Well, I just saw that I
There's a lot of the same labels.
When it goes like that, ever you have a bad connection, ever you make a mistake. No, it's not. Maybe just alias?
No, it doesn't work either.
No?
So we have
It's
to
not
do
alias.
for the
Because
pause.
alias is a several brands.
Yeah, that's so you don't have to
11, right?
like these variables you have to put it so you want
Oh, it's label alias.
and then you also want
Item label alias.
So
No, I know it's down for some reason. The Windows, but
Wait.
If we were to take this and the same column,
Oh, geez, that looks kind of...
yeah, we can show it.
Yeah, no, you have no direct opening it.
So I've shown you a couple of simple examples. I think it would be best to make like small groups, like 2 or 3 people, and figure out what you want to get from the Sparkle engine. I hear something about commons categories, something about women with
about
other things, and try to make it together. There's people. Oh, that's nice. We're not getting and so
Should we close it? Should we close the
if the air conditioning is on, I will close it.
Yeah, yeah.
We could freeze here.
Keep sparkling.
So maybe make groups of 3 or 4 and together try to figure out.
Yes, it is working.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I'm sorry to
Is
break
there
your
a way
spark.
of
Mine
getting,
is just.
like, any language?
That's the item out here labeled, labeled, so you can all labels and then
That's
No, I'm
so the labels are actually the labels in different languages.
on my
Different
it's
countries.
free to
And these are
You get to tell them which language it is.
Yeah, you can.
It's right here somewhere. I've seen it in YouTube comment as a video somewhere else.
Okay.
So you can get the analysis using item.
Yeah, it's a bit, how about doing something like age is great for less than. I'll save the one for later. We have a couple minutes left, so I can show you the age you want to know.
Yeah, I just playing since class.
So you can ask for the
Yeah,
date
just
of
a
birth.
but everything after the hash is going to be commented.
Did you someone tape this down?
So,
someone sit here.
like that's,
Someone stop there.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
yeah, because
Sorry?
actually here you were forcing to have only that's humans. No, it's hard to find that.
Yeah, literary prices.
That had an
Dutch
image.
literary prices. No,
Yeah,
no image.
All the,
So like here they may or may not have an image. Like it's not a requirement.
that does not
If you have a way of like selecting something without forcing it to be there. So you can,
wouldn't it be what
You make a free slip.
like minus
no, it's just like, oh, I want the image of these people, but if there's no image, it's okay. Then you can use optional. Here I have the goats, and if I do items T, yeah, so I overloaded my control space. That's very annoying. Image, and I select image, and there were 7 results, and I only have 4 results, right? But if I do, then I'm getting the image, but if there's no
If you omit the optional, then it's treated to be a really strict end.
yeah, it's a strict end. That's what
Now
it's.
it's alright.
Yeah, because if I want the image but I don't want it to be a hard condition, then it's optional. So I can put it into my select there. So if it's not there, right?
How would you say these literary words now only want the one from the Netherlands?
Before you
So you can go to the
just take the date of birth, go to that.
Origin of something?
yeah, just like control space. You can start here basically, and then you can start.
And then you can just do filter on the So if you look at the
So it kind of is going to depend on, yeah, 217, that's going to depend on the data model for this one. So I'm not familiar with fully sure the prices how they're being paid.
Yes, I country of origin.
So a good way of doing it is just like here you've got the literature pricing, right? The square that you have. You can just go to an item and see how it's how this country is. It's probably not the most industry that would make a lot of sense. So you can just go to the Q item.
Try the same
Yeah, so it's so
How can you say, well, I want to import in the country property or also in the country of origin?
Oh, no,
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Because you can't narrow it down and actually have to
You can compose Sparkle query, but that's a bit too advanced for me. Like this, I don't know. I don't know how to do that. It's possible, it's definitely possible. Like in that case, it should be fine. So I see that I don't know space, but in that case, it should be fine because it should be always country. Country of
That depends on the for Dutch enterprise, it also says country of origin.
Okay, yeah, so the model is a bit dirty. I don't know.
limited by certain occupation.
Just means end of line.
But you can either download on your or what you can do is you go parking for
So, for everyone, it's just playing around with to just do the first thing with Sparkle. There's also a help page, there are quite a few help pages about Sparkle. There's webinars and other things to get you more into Sparkle. You can find them. You could also choose the language through the help portal. Help portal.
everyone, please.
Can I have your attention?
5 minutes.
Yeah.
1 minute.
Everyone is doing Sparkle. Yeah. Bookmark the help portal. That's your starting point for finding things.
Yeah, there it is.
If you sometimes.
This is how we do it.
I use the one because I'm always looking for things that are not in the market. Yeah.
Okay, so.
You are.
I'm trying to like, something to clear.
Oh, face what is so
It is.
Yeah.
So, I'm trying to translate this. I'm trying to find things that are and codexes. Yeah, but how do I find things that are both either manuscript or codex? Like, because I'm using, right, you see, like, it has to be or it has been forward-stated rather than hand.
Yes. First thing maybe this is not so easy one. Instance of maybe this is something else, like the format of the book or things like that. I'm not sure it's wrong.
Maybe not all of them look like that, but most of them that I've seen do it
We're more than welcome to play around with more,
So, what you want to do? Is all this?
there's no order.
Yeah, there's no
Optional, you can use or yeah, so optional, if you just give, so say you want to have all painters or, I don't know, sculptures. Then you say, or page painter, or page sculpture, union. And then you go down with the optional, you just say, you don't restrict it, you just say, okay, if you have the field,
Isolate manuscripts that don't have
That's one issue already explored. Yeah, give and then, yeah, his drunk is
So this, I started to
Also this one, it's interesting. Like this is
so this is, and this is what I can pay attention to. Okay, so it's an item, and then this is the property that I'm interested in. And so I, what's the information, where is this coming from? Is this the?
This is coming This is where you decide.
Yeah. Yeah, for example, so I want to mention anything. I know,
change anything to the query.
Ja, ik heb een lijstje met die eruit gehaald. Ja, niet dat ik denk van
Ja, op mijn les werken die control space optie niet. Maar ja, dit is wel. Dit is eigenlijk
ja.
Ik weet niet waar je naar zoekt, maar alleen weten wat je niet
Ja, dan kan je eerst coding krijgen in Nederland. Ja, wel lachen. Ja, dan heb ik het aantal vertellen. Oké, want daarom heb je dan dit als CSV. Oh ja, dat is goed. Oh, en nog een permanent. Ja, dat is ook het plan. Ik wil alle literaire Nederlandse prijzen beschrijven helemaal volledig. Ik kan nu checken wat er al in zit. Ja. En dan moet de prijs al heen. Dus daar is een conventie, ga ik gewoon aansluiten.
It's a syntax problem. Because you looked at this syntax, I said, oh, right, it's done. I cannot add to all what should be done. So remove the filter is done.
When there is no problem.
Yeah,
When people have not.
that's what brackets.
Oh, there is no property.
Because here we're looking at there is a property, but it would be like empty value.
Yeah, right, I see it. You're right.
How can I do a count?
Okay.
Oh,
I want to count how many
of that, except I can keep only one because you're only cheating in one.
No,
I'm going to add it.
Yeah, but just move from the and you just do select and you do a count, so COUST and capital M, yeah. Close the parentheses and you use the rest. After signing on yeah, so you need to do a select count and then put the as after that, and just give it another name. Yeah. And then I never remember if you need to have parentheses around the S, you need those parentheses around the S.
So you select.
That's just a syntax thing where you cannot have count right after select. You need to. It becomes an expression, and I'm not sure actually you need to add thing, but it's nicer to give it an actual name. But have you been trying moving it? Yeah, even the variable. If it's correctly, just give it like a full name. No, you need the parentheses around, I think. Yeah. No, you need to. Oh, yeah. Or maybe, yeah, try again. No, sorry, make sure. Yeah, not complex expression.
So, just to finish up, you can go on Wikidata.
Yeah, no, so you need to sign it and put the assigning expression.
You know it? So, Wikidata.
Yeah, so I will take one of the examples and several examples about having an item in a language. So Wikipedia,
how many minutes?
Typing
35.
there are 415 examples.
So now I remember, so to do things you can do in
When you are
if you want to do like composition, like non-restricted ends, you can use
Yeah, both from the Netherlands and also the Kingdom of the Netherlands.
Yeah, well, I think there's a syntax to do several items. Yeah, country is a mess because when you look at Austria and you can like give me all the scientists for in Austria, there's like there's nothing. But Austria, the Republic of Austria is just like a huge thing inside, and you're like, okay, so I need the Habsburg Empire. That's just
yeah, but honestly, our examples
They say all the things that are not in Spanish.
so have you some explanation? What is it? Where? So this is the explanation page?
So you can just move everything else to the query, and then
You have a description page, which is very active. Very.
So these are
yeah, so I have so it can be 0. So you can easily modify that one.
Sometimes you get the pointer, oh, I should have done this way. Sometimes that's okay. Yeah, okay, that's right. I was like, last one, because he worked at Oxford.
if you if there is
So good luck.
there was no statement. Like there was not even
Anyone here understands Hebrew? Oren, can you help us type the URL because it's set to Hebrew now? It's set to Hebrew and for us gibberish. Now it's
Es complejo porque
He's very active on Facebook.
so yeah, it's
Okay, well, maybe I'll write to him.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to?
No, I don't really know. It's
I have forget Sparker inside.
Tenemos sociólogas estaba poniendo nacionales aquí, no, a mi pueblo aquí en Cerrado. Y eso, 8 arqueólogas y el otro esta no tiene ni jefa.
Another we make it in the world. Oh, the citation declaration.
Yeah. Try to use this just to poke that thing up there.
Thank you, Matt. You're welcome.
Did you plug in? There you are.
I often go a bit, okay, there's this article, if somebody was nice enough to make a descriptive name for it, citizenship, like how should I do that? And then just to create a map. There's a lot of examples. Usually there's always one example that somebody has put an example that kind of does what you want, and then you're like, oh, okay, this way. If I can figure it out, then I have I was completely confused this part, but at the beginning I couldn't do anything. The more you could do better.
Supervisors?
Yeah.
There's a big database that is
Axel, it might just be you and me.
No, he said he's staying.
Oh,
I said maybe. Convince me. She's running it.
Oh, okay. We could change the topic though. We could just talk about whatever you guys want.
Okay, Sparkle.
Sparkle.
I know nobody wanted to leave the sparkle workshop.
more sparkle.
You guys all look very sparkly.
How much time do you have? Like 5 minutes?
Huh?
Less.
We have less than 5 minutes?
Should we get to the next session?
You have minus
Time
5
is
now.
Alright.
There's not much down there though.
There's good coffee down there.
Get coffee and bring it back.
Very quickly.
Oh, it's ended already.
Yeah, it's
Actually, in fact, there is no 15-minute break.
No, there's a 15-second break.
That's right. That's right. You got your break on the bus this morning.
I walked, so I didn't even get
You
the
walked?
bus. Yeah.
Impressive. You quite got your tester.
30-minute walk?
It's not that far.
No,
But
it's
yeah, I had
Where
a
did you
suitcase
walk
somewhere
from?
that I would have walked.
Yeah, well, but the Leonardo Beach Hotel says, like, it saves me 1 minute or 2 minutes. But they are too.
Try to say a fast street.
You're not staying after all.
No, I'm saying fast street.
Okay, I'll just go ahead and get going and we'll catch people as they come in. So, I had proposed this as a 90-minute workshop, actually, and then I got a half hour. So, this is apropos. I had also 6.5 minutes to talk about a project that took us a year and a half. So, you know, it's all in the GLAM wiki spirit. But how many of you went to Asaf's workshop that was on a similar topic? Yesterday, or maybe it was the day before yesterday. Did you go to that? It was really very good, and he has his slides will be linked to in his workshop. I think it was on Saturday. That was really good and very closely connected to what I wanted to talk about. So I'd recommend that you go look at his slides. They're really good. And also, if you saw the presentation that Dominic and Pat and Pam did from the National Archives, they had a lot of things to say that really resonated with me and what I wanted to say about meeting the needs of GLAM. So how many of you consider yourselves primarily to be Wikimedians? So I know you're on the fence. You're both, right?
Well, I'm also both.
Yeah, and then the others of you are at the partner institution?
We actually try to support GLAMs to open up their data and collections. So
Okay.
we're a bit of an intermediary. And
So you're in between
Yeah.
also?
And how do you try to lure them in?
Well,
Because you see it as...
with a lot of the arguments that we've been hearing in the last 2 days, I think. Yes, it's a work in progress. It's building, trying to build success stories to convince others and see that it pays off.
It was fun to see Loic this morning of the
Yeah, it
Met.
was very
All these stats, and it's about the money, isn't it?
Yeah, money is a big part of it. So where I sit is this is kind of like this is the Merrily infographic. I came from I had a long career at the University of California at Berkeley. And
Your cup.
huh?
Your cup.
Oh my God. Okay. Yes, I
Print a
must be
picture.
documented properly, without coffee cup in my hand. I used to work at the University of California, Berkeley Libraries, and I worked there for a long time, working with special collections. And I started working in the oral history office, which was very much a paper-based institution. I started working there in 1988. And we were really very dedicated to putting the oral histories that we did and the transcripts that we did, come on in, into the hands of researchers. And in 1993, I struggled to get Mosaic installed on my browser at home, and became really intrigued by the idea of putting things online on the web. And in 1995, I, in a professional capacity, was putting finding aids and other texts, including our oral history transcripts, online in SGML at the time, for those of you who remember the precursor to XML, or some of you were probably too young to even have been born by then. In 1997, I was working on projects to put images online, and then there's a gap where I was just continuing to do all that work. And in 2005, I created my Wikipedia account, really interested in how to connect libraries to Wikipedia. So I'm not, I would say, a bleeding edge adopter of technology. I kind of like tend to be skeptical and sit back for a while, and then jump in. So Wikipedia was kind of a thing for me. In 2012, OCLC, which is the organization that I work for now, hosted a Wikipedia in residence. We were one of the first, 10 to 12 institutions to have a Wikipedia in residence. In 2016, we got a grant from the Knight Foundation and from the Wikimedia Foundation to do an online training program for Wikimedia libraries. And then in 2018, just earlier this year, I had a book published through the American Library Association, Wikimedia libraries. So I'm like very much come from the perspective of I'm firmly rooted in GLAMs, but I'm definitely like a huge fan of Wikimedia projects, and I consider myself to be a Wikibarian at this point. I'm a hybrid of the two. But I do have a lot of frustrations in seeing kind of misunderstandings on both sides. So I see both parties kind of talking past one another. And if I was talking to a group of librarians, which I frequently do, I would try to explain the Wikipedia side of things, but what I'm going to do today, and I think probably you all have just as many valid observations as I do, is how we can avoid missed opportunities and misunderstandings, and how we can work more closely with one another. I don't know how many of you have seen, there's a pretty short article that was based on some research about what motivates Wikipedians. It's from 2007, and so it's kind of dated, and it would be interesting to see this research redone. And if any of you know of any more current research, I'd love to know about it. But what I found really interesting about this was it talks about the most common motives of things that motivate Wikipedians. In this case, it was looking at Wikipedians, not Wikimedians. So things that really motivate Wikipedians are things like fun. I enjoy this activity. It's a hobby. You should enjoy your hobbies. The ideology and the information and knowledge should be free, and then this feeling that I'm helping others. The least common motives are around, around career, that I'm doing something that's going to advance my career, where I'm gaining work experience and skills, and social. And then there were a couple of things that were shared. I like to share knowledge, which gives me a sense of personal achievement. It turns out editing an article isn't scary at all. It's easy, surprisingly satisfying, and can become obsessively addicted. And it's this easy thing. It's easy and it's fun are things that I do not think resonate with GLAM professionals, and that I do hear Wikipedians saying to people in GLAMs, that I think can be kind of demotivating. I don't know why, but fun is not something that you're supposed to have in the workplace. And easy can be demotivating, because if it's easy for you and it's not perceived as easy by them, then they feel kind of stupid. So that's just a small observation. One of the things that Asaf talked about in her work, in his workshop, and where I think his slides are really helpful, and he goes into some depth in this, is that the needs of GLAMs vary, and so if you're going to be approaching a partner, it's really, really important that you do research the same way that you would do if you're like creating an article or editing an article, is that you really need to dig in there and do your homework and actually read what's on their website. Not only read what's on their website, but dig deep and try to find things like their mission statement, their annual report, the things that can be really, really boring. Things like organization charts are very revealing because it shows how the organization is structured and also where the organization is investing. So if they have one part of the organization that's really small and then another that's really large, that can give you hints as to where the organization is. And I don't know why we just lost this. Okay, good. Mysteries of that. Maybe that will go. News announcements, I think, can also be what is the institution writing about? So I think that those can be and what are they proud of? And then who are their other current partners? So if you're thinking about partnering with them, who else are they partnering with? And who do they see as their other strategic alliances? Because that might help you understand where you fit in. And also the types of partnerships that they're seeking out, and how you may be one of a range of stakeholders that's working with them. The other thing to realize is that the needs of GLAM professionals vary. So they're not, we're not homogenous. We're very heterogeneous. So not only are there different types of GLAMs, but there's different types of professionals within GLAMs. So I'm a librarian. I work in an academic, I have worked in an academic library setting primarily, so I'm just going to go through some of the types of people that you may find in U.S. academic libraries. Just to get, this is not the end of a list, this is just to get you thinking about the different types of people. So public services librarians are outward facing, really interested in information literacy and developing programs. They are not necessarily metadata literate. So if you're talking to a public services librarian, I wouldn't lead with Wikidata, exactly. But talking about how Wikipedia can help with information literacy might be a really good hook. Collection development librarians or curators build collections. They really understand the research needs of particular communities, so kind of looping them in on the subject access side. And I think Joss back there is a great example of somebody with really deep subject expertise who's been kind of hooked into Wikipedia. Special collections or curators may have materials to digitize and also very deep subject knowledge. Metadata librarians, that's where you're going to get interested in authority control, and you can really hook them in with Wikidata. Metadata librarians in the US at least, that's kind of a dying breed. These people have been downsized enormously. So as efficiencies have been gained in cataloging, we have fewer and fewer metadata librarians overall. So just kind of an observation, I think people generally think that librarians are all interested in metadata, and it's really a very small sliver of the profession that's really interested in that. Social media, I think this is an area of growth within libraries, is that a lot of libraries have kind of a social media or PR department. And this is an area that, when I was working in libraries, we didn't really have a marketing department. But now that's a pretty big component of libraries, so that can be an area to look into. And those people are really interested in search engine optimization, so talking about the power that Wikipedia and other projects can be really powerful there. So one of the things in our Wikipedia and Libraries course, in working with our Web Junction colleagues who develop programming for people in public libraries, have really drilled into me, is that what you're doing in partnering with GLAMs is understanding the needs of adult learners. So you're catching people who they already have full-time jobs, you're trying to get them interested in what you're interested in, and you have to very quickly connect with them and express to them what it is that you have to offer. So the information you present to them needs to be practical. It can be aspirational and inspirational, but I think it needs to be really practical information, and it needs to do one of these three things. Meet an existing unmet need that they have articulated, not that you imagined for them, not that you've made up for them, but that they've actually articulated and you're articulating back to them because you've read it on their website, because you've interviewed them, because you understand it from them. It needs to map onto an existing program, so something that they're already investing in. So either you're helping them solve a problem or you're helping them do something that they're already doing better. In a lot of cases, I think GLAM professionals or people who are GLAM managers are looking for ways to introduce professional development activities into their workforce to help skill people up. And I think you can kind of pitch engagement with Wikimedia activities in that way, but I think you need to be really careful so that you're not being insulting, if that makes sense. So I think you can say, this is going to give you some new useful skills that will be helpful in your workplace, but you don't want to imply that let them lead you there. Don't lead with that. Like we're going to make you smarter. They're already plenty smart. And again, use your Wikipedia skills as researchers and think of what they're telling you as something you're reading and researching. So does that sound right to you? You're nodding vigorously over there. And then finally, and I think that this was something that there's a presentation from the National Library of Israel yesterday, and one of the things they did in their One Life, One Ref campaign was to put up pictures of the librarians in the National Library who were engaging with this. And I think the more you can put the face of GLAM professionals on your work or on our work, the better it is. So I think if you find examples of GLAM professionals that are within an institution who are already doing this work, and you can help hold them up as your poster children for here's who's doing the work, and hey, look, it's somebody who is you or who looks like you. That is very effective. You can find people who are working at similar institutions or at peer institutions. If you can find out from the institution who they consider to be their peers or even their aspirational peers. So if you're a university library that's down here, and maybe there's one that's just like a rung above, if you can find them and say, hey, they're doing this, you can do this too. That's good. A lot of times, at least in academic libraries, people are very much herd animals. They want to go where they see people are already comfortable going, and then follow along in a path. People are not necessarily. Some people want to be path breakers, but other people want to know that they're following in a path that is well regarded by others in their profession. So find people who are GLAM professionals at similar institutions in similar roles. So going back to what I said earlier, find if you're talking to catalogers, find other catalogers who are doing this work and are being successful and putting it into practice. Sorry, I don't know why this keeps going to sleep. Doing the same kind of work, and just as I said, let the GLAM professionals be the face of the Wikimedia work. I think that can be a really effective tactic. And I think that's my last slide. So as I said, this was supposed to be a workshop. I asked for 90 minutes. I got 30 minutes. So this turned out to be more like a lecture than a workshop. But I'm just wondering what of this resonates with you, and what hints would you share for others who are also trying to work with GLAM professionals? Yes.
I think that it's something that struck me in one of the conversations during these days was that I'm like, I'm not super sure how much the Wikimedia community does the research over what the museum work implies in a lot of words. Like, I know that you're talking mainly about libraries, and libraries, yeah, but I think it's also like important to figure out which business GLAM institutions are in, and I don't know how well the conversation has been leveraged in this space.
Yeah.
Probably it needs a more systematic approach, but I think that that's something that, yeah, might be needed.
Yeah, I think all of our information and practices are really diffuse, right?
Yeah.
Like I think we have a lot of collective knowledge, but it's not shared collective knowledge.
Yeah.
And so consolidating that, come on in. Yeah.
Ladies first.
Oh.
I just wanted to ask you, do you have a special way of speaking to small libraries? You know, a small town, small library kind of thing?
I think that, again, I think realizing the business that library is in, I think it would depend on the library. I don't think that you have a way to talk to a library. I think that you have to look at that library in their context. So how do they fit into how do they see themselves as fitting into their community? What does their community look like? What communities do they serve? You know, so Kim at Kansas City Public Library is different than you know, somebody in a different setting. I don't know what you work in a public library setting.
I would say that's very true. So every library is a reflection of the community that they serve, and so whatever, and it also depends on the size of the library. We were talking about this earlier. The larger libraries have more infrastructure support, so you can specialize more. But smaller libraries, particularly in rural environments, you have 1, 2, 3 staff people that are in charge of literally everything that goes on in that building. So everything from cleaning the bathrooms to maintaining the PCs to doing all their marketing and programming, and so it totally depends on the library.
Yeah, and those people will be, I think everybody is short of time because libraries have been, all cultural heritage institutions have been, defunded in a lot of ways, in a lot of contexts.
I guess I'm asking if there's a kind of for very small libraries like that, but just 3 people who are also cleaning the bathroom, if there's things that have been identified as things which in general make their lives easier, where there's already a way to do them that one knows.
It really depends on the context, but so we, in our Wikipedia and libraries course, one of the things that we highlighted in one of our course sessions was how you can effectively use Wikipedia in a reference setting. So, just even something like that, like, hey, you may have heard that Wikipedia is unreliable, but here's the ways in which it's very reliable and which it may help you in a reference setting. So any way that you can shortcut a reference library, if you can make a reference librarian's job easier and give them some reassurances about ways that, if you're looking for things like, was there a sequel to that novel? Or was this turned into a movie? Or, things like that. Or which Star Trek character died in which episode of, the series. There are areas where Wikipedia is very strong and where you can rely on it for reference transactions. So things like that you can lead with, like, hey, I want to, help you understand, or understand from you how you're already using Wikipedia, so you learn too, and then start a conversation that way, maybe, or talk to them. Maybe they have students who are coming into the library, and they're coming in with Wikipedia articles. But I would be curious, just start a conversation with them, like, how are you currently using Wikipedia? And how does Wikipedia currently come up in your context? Yeah.
What I particularly liked about your talk is to look at the needs of the GLAM. On the other hand, you see that there are circles. There's the circle of the need of the GLAM and the need of Wikipedia.
Yeah.
And you have to look where they meet.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they have a beautiful collection and you look at it for 1 minute and you see copyrighted till 2040. So, and then you advise them, try to do something about that. or shift to another gear. And one other remark, there's a nice book written by you, Leveraging Wikipedia, which gives a great insight in how these things work. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I would actually like to point out one strategy, like which has worked very well in Finland, that we are in a different, like the Open GLAM community specifically has sort of pulled together the professionals from different institutions, and we organize hackathons and done things outside maybe the context of their work. So meeting in the space of open content.
Yes.
And so letting them maybe through this experience find the ways themselves.
Find their own ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
Yeah.
Kind of create a Switzerland where you can meet in between.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have a world campaign, one librarian, one web. And over the year we have a lot of action around the world about convincing librarians.
Yeah.
And it's so cool.
Yeah, yeah, that it can be. I have heard a lot of librarians say, "Why are you making me clean up your mess?" You know, so they don't. I think you need to help them understand. If they think that one life, one rough is good, that's great. But if I wouldn't lead them to it unless you think that it's gonna resonate with them in their work. So, I think some people find it to be really fun and engaging.
Social media, for community manager, we have museum week, and we have a lot of periodically events when you talk with or ask a curator.
Yeah.
We have a lot of occasion to speak with professional, and I think it's cool to speak about Wikipedia and when they come.
We are, I see other people are lurking in the doorway here. I think that they're ready to take over the room. And I know everybody got a short coffee break, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. But thank you so much. I've learned a lot at this conference and got a lot of inspiration from a lot of talks in thinking about this topic. So thank you.
I'm sorry.
Płacimy za... To się nagrywa, nie płaciła. Uwaga na sobie.
I agree, and I think that those data workflow issues are really
We're just saying that this is
How much
about this.
Yeah.
This one is Wikipedia, but everybody needs the graph. There's a
I think that there's a, yes.
We started that before. It shouldn't come as a surprise that we need someone.
Somebody needs to be it.
Yeah, and
yes,
it should be the only one. Even though it's kind of an intimate setting.
Okay, that's
for like we can say pretty much anyone that shut up and
okay, I'll try to find some Wikimedia the local experts are
You can get this.
We can use this one, we can use your own.
I'll use my own of this.
Put it
as a base.
Good. Is it projecting HTML okay?
Oh, it's a project.
Yeah. Found some issues with this Let me see if they have their own. My HDMI one didn't work well. Call the
I have mine went well. I used my.
You use your HDMI to like or whatever that is.
I had it. I was. It's wrong.
You have your dongle?
Sanki yapıyorlar ya. Sen çıkar. Bana neydi? WhatsApp kanka. Kaşa güven kıtın.
Good. Exercise. Are you here?
I couldn't look at the screen as a
Sure. We'll make sure to get it to you. Come back here.
But he's not talking about mental weakness.
Yeah, I know.
He is? No, he's not.
It's not.
No, but if you can leave it there, then whatever. I'm learning everything.
Pattypan school. Good tool.
Never heard.
Yeah, the schedule doesn't describe what it is. That's the thing. But it's a really great tool.
İnternet is?
Okay guys, I think we can start. So we have like around 1 hour, and I just want to present a tool that mostly me, but some other guys also working on, which is Pattypan. So in the talk, I said that it's like mix of something for beginners and advanced users, but it mostly depends on your skills. So I just want to make sure how many of you are actually using Pattypan before. Okay, so that means that we have a tight section of advanced user, if I can say that.
I won't call me advanced.
Yeah, so okay, so we can start from scratch, which is good. So first thing, there's a page on Commons, which is the best way to start with, where you have where's my cursor? Ah, here it is. Where you have a link to download the latest version, where you have some flyers, which is like basically summary of what I will say today, some screenshots just because, and some quick links, including learning pattern on Meta, yet again link to GitHub where the project lives, I would say, and a link to the category where all the images go. So as you can see, we are close to 250,000 files uploaded via Pattypan. So people are using it, not complaining too much. So I think yeah, it kind of works. So for start, what you basically need is Java virtual machine. So the easiest way to check out if you have it is just to download the latest version. If it's not working, then you need to basically install it. How to do this? There is information on the simple manual link. So if you are not following along, you just try to remember that there is a link somewhere that if you need some problems, here you have the information how to do that. So that's the link. You download Java. It's always good to install the latest one. So even if you have one, just go to this website and just follow the process. So once you download it, it will be just one Java file called pattypan.jar. And when you run it, you will end up on this screen. And this is the starting screen for the program. And as you can see, we have two paths here. One is for generating the spreadsheet, and the second one is for validating and upload the spreadsheet. So I will maybe start with what we actually want to do with this program. So the first step is to preparing our data. So our starting point is, for example, some folder on your local machine where you have some pictures. I have some paintings from Naval Museum in Gdańsk, just as an example. But for example, you have some GLAM institutions that don't have structured database, and you are just talking with them, and it's like, okay, we want to collaborate, or you are part of GLAM initiative that have some pictures, and you want to publish things on Commons. But all you have is, like, for example, some scanned information or some old photographs, but you actually don't have some database or structured information. You have just, some papers or just people who knows what it is, but there is like no database behind it. It's just people. So what we actually want to do is take all these pictures from this folder and create an Excel spreadsheet, or generally a spreadsheet, where in the first column you will have name of this file, and the rest of the columns will be fields from a Commons template, for example, artwork. So in that way you can fill the information on the Excel spreadsheet and then just send this file, an Excel spreadsheet, to someone who can upload it, like experienced Wikimedian, or to like double check if everything there is correct. And you can also, like, the person who did this, who can also like upload it on herself, which is shouldn't be a huge problem. So I will just do exactly what I told. So I click on generate spreadsheet, and I will go to another screen, which is a screen where I can select the folder where I have the images. I will select this one, and as you can
Sorry, could you go back? What did you select?
Yes. I started from the starting screen.
Yeah.
Oops, thanks. And then I click on this blue button, which is generate spreadsheet. And then I click the browse button, where you can select the folder. But something hangs, and I will need to kill him. So sorry. Yeah. I run it from the console just because the system is in Polish, so it automatically catches up the language of the interface and will switch to Polish. It doesn't really make sense. There is a bunch of translations now. I believe there is besides English, obviously, there is a Polish, I guess, Swedish, and some other. I will need to double check. Czech probably. There is a Spanish pending that will be added soon, and some other language. French will also added. So I click on the generate spreadsheet, click on browse, selected the folder when I have these files, like this. And as a summary, I have information that I've added 5 JPG files. And if you have some structure of folders and you don't want to rearrange them, you can also click this button here to include files from subdirectories, which will go through the tree, but there is no like block after several folders. So if you select some root folder, program will probably crash. So just bear in mind that it goes like into infinite if there's like really deep tree of folders. I'll close the door, sorry. Okay, so if I have these 5 files, I will go with next. And here is the first thing that it's a bit more complicated, which is choosing the columns alias selecting the template. So for example here, I have 5 files that depicts paintings. So for me the obvious choice is to choose the artwork template from Wikimedia Commons. If you are not aware, here I have a list of templates on Wikimedia Commons that are usually used to describe files on Wikimedia Commons. There is this the most I would say ordinal template, which is the information, and just like here you can click to see the information about this template. So information template is just this table that we used to see on Wikimedia Commons, and that is really useful if you, for example, want to upload your own photographs or some just recent photographs where there's like just author, source. It's usually like own work, date from the EXIF, and description just description. But for like vast majority of users that are using Pattypan, they are using the artwork template, which is this bit more complicated structure where you can add a lot of information, and it's basically crafted for paintings, right? So we have like all this information that at some point will be stored on Wikidata or structured data on Commons, but this is what we have now. This huge table with information. So I will go with this one since my source files are about paintings. Yeah. So I basically can choose this one, and now we have the same list of fields that are on Commons. As you can see, this list is this list. So there's like different names, but this is actually this columns. So what we actually want to do is, by using the spreadsheet and using Pattypan, we want to do this wiki magic by not touching actually this template, which is quite convenient for people not experienced with Wikitext. So now we have a few options here. First, the field name, as I said, is quite straightforward. And now we have some values here and some magic buttons here. So how it works is we can actually here some like predefine what we want to see in the Excel file. So for example, if I have 5 paintings by the same author, I can set here like John Doe, and once I will create the spreadsheet, what I will show you in a second, I will have this value all across the files, which is quite convenient because you don't need to do this actually in the Excel. You can do pre-work here. You can set it, for example, if you are not using the notes column, you can basically disable that and say, I have no information about place of creation, there's no other versions, reference I don't care, place of discovery that's out of scope for us, we don't have departments, And the institution is the middle one, which is constant value. So for institution, I can say some institution, right? Let's say it's a template on Commons. So what it will do is on the Excel spreadsheet we will not see this column, and also this column, but we will set the constant value there. I know it sounds blurry, but I will show you in a second how it works. So you can just remember that institution have a constant value of some code, and we actually can use the wiki text if you want. That will totally works. It's just you can go with raw value and you can go with whatever you want, and the program is just mashing the data together. There's not so much magic about that, but it just works. Yeah, I'll go with next one. So the final step of the first timeline is to create the Excel file. So I have a summary that I will create spreadsheet with 5 files from directory that I chose, and that's the name of the spreadsheet. It's auto-generated, but you can change the name whatever you want. I'll create as it is, and if it's properly created, I will have the information that it's created successfully, and then can actually open it. Oops. Yeah. Okay. So now from the program I jump into, in my case, LibreOffice, but you can open it in an Excel. You can import it into Google Documents, whatever thing that handles the XLS file. And now we have a situation that, as you can see in the first column, was I said in the front, I have a list of files with path to this file, with this JPG file. The second column is the name that we want to have on Commons. It's for a start, it just copies this name here, just for the convenience, because for example you can have files that already have a nice name here and you don't want to change that, so just copy that. And for artist, as I said, I set the predefined value, and that's what I see here. It's like I want to see this column, but I also want to have some value there. So there it is, and I have just the rest of normal columns that are on Commons. But as you can see here, I set the constant value on the institution column, so you won't find here. So now you can ask how the program knows that we set some institution, right? Where is it? So on the very bottom you can see that we have 2 tabs on the generated spreadsheet. First one is for data, and the second one is for the template. So if you go to the template one, you will see on the first, I'll go like this, on the first column, first row, we actually have a wiki code. And how it works is, for people who are into Commons, this is kind of familiar. So as you can see, we have like this normal wiki code equals $, and something in the curly braces. So how it works is, from the first tab, give me the information from the column, this name, and put the value here. That's it. So if you want to, for example, do some manipulations on the text, you can go with on the first tab or here in the second tab. For example, if you have descriptions of files and they're all in English, German, whatever, you can go and there is on Commons there is a, for example, EN template, right? Which says that this text is in English language. So you can go and manipulate like each row on the data, but you can actually go and wrap this value around the template English, like this. So that says that this text will be in English, and that's how it works on Commons. So as you can see, the institution value, as I said, as constant, it basically pastes the code here, which basically says, I don't need that in the column because it's always the same. I just need this value here somewhere in the code. And you can basically do whatever you want here. If you have some external fancy templates that says this file was uploaded to Commons with a collaboration with Wikimedia, your chapter, and some museum, you can just add it here or here, whatever. Like, you can do whatever you want, as long as you don't damage the name of the value here, because the program checks if the list of columns resonates with the list of values here on this page. So if there's some mismatches, the program will probably crash. But besides that, it's like this. Is it super unclear or just unclear or just because I was just starting to mad and just like no time for questions. If you have some thoughts around that, can move on in a second. There's also some tricky parts where you can use. So this is the language called FreeMarker, if I'm not mistaken. And there's also some, you can do some easy magic here. So for example, if there's a column that, for example, has description, like here, but it doesn't make sense, for example, if the description is empty, it doesn't make sense to just post the empty template here because it says like English, colon, no text on Commons. So we can do some magic like this. So we can do the conditional statement that if some value has some content, then we can do that. We can wrap it around in English template. But if not, just leave it as it is. It should work like this. Let me check.
Are these documented, this part, or this part document is on the...
Not really. That's why you don't really, yeah. Okay. I said no description here just to test if it works because I'm not quite sure I'm doing it properly. Yeah, and here I'll go with description. And I'll copy here. And go some values here and here. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Okay. So I will save that. Yeah. And go back to the program. So let's say we just fill all the information that we need here. And actually, this is the stage that we can, like, for example, if you have some files from the from some organizations that donate the file to you, and you can actually generate the spreadsheet send the spreadsheet back to them and say, guys, can you do this? And this is like totally offline. You can send them one file, or you can upload it to Google Docs and work together with like few people, which is also quite convenient. And then just download the Excel file.
Could you once more go back to the other file that you have?
The other file?
The file with all the...
yes, that's the same file, that's a different tab.
That one, yeah,
yes.
Please, because we want to make pictures of that.
Yeah.
Or maybe bigger?
Yes. That's probably auto-generated. You also have it on YouTube.
Is it working now?
Yes, it's live stream.
Okay.
Yeah. So it will be somewhere, I guess. And we will see if it actually works, because I'm also quite not sure that if it will work. Should work. Okay, perfect. So I'll just click on continue and upload. I'm not quite sure why the application is making some problems. Did I miss something? No. Here's a pause for sitting here.
On YouTube is which URL, which number channel? YouTube. What's the name of the channel?
So this is Andrew Lee's devices. So it's on his YouTube. If you go with
his name.
Yes, Andrew Lee.
Andrew Lee.
I think there will be a link in the Etherpad and on the
yes. If you go on the program, there's like this columns with tracks, and on the header there is a link to YouTube. So it's this one. Once it will go offline, it will be just like one huge 4 hours long stream. So you need to find it somewhere.
Okay.
But it's this one on the wiki. Okay. Yeah. So now we basically go to the second part. So as you can see, we can actually go and use Pattypan with only the second path, and the first path, if we understand what's the magic behind that, we can actually generate it in a completely different way. So for example, if you have some data from an organization that already have some databases, we can just adjust what they sent to us. For example, they created a huge CSV file or something from just straight from their database. We can adjust this data, for example, via OpenRefine. That was a workshop yesterday. So if you missed that, yeah, check the YouTube on that because it's worth it.
It's a very common workflow and it's very powerful if you're working with large data sets.
Yes. Okay, so since we have an Excel file generated by us or from somewhere else, we can go to the second part, which is validate and upload. So here, looks similar, but we are not, in this time, we are not browsing for the catalog where we have files, we are browsing for the Excel file that we just prepared. So it's this one, I'm opening that. Yeah. So I have a summary of what the program found. So there was 5 files loaded successfully, which is okay since we have 5 files. 0 errors, 5 warnings, and the warnings are saying that we have empty values for these values. So it's really convenient to remove all the columns we are not needed, because then these warnings will be actually helpful for us if we are working on like 500 files and we don't want to like scroll every time to just triple check if everything is present. So the next page is actually like the preload of what we are about to push to Commons. So here we will find, here on the left side, we will find the name of the files that we just had. So this is the name that we're about to push to Commons. I didn't change that, I probably should, but this is the name. Here we have a path on our computer. This is the preview of the file, and here we have the Commons description, or the WIKI code that was generated via merging these two tabs from the spreadsheet. So as you can see, we have this artist and author and description, that it's actually some description wrapped around the English template. So that was done by, once again, just to get this clear. So here we have description equals template en some description, and okay, I lost that. Here. And here we have this huge condition, which said that if we have description, then put description inside template English. And if there is no description, we will see no description, hopefully. This one. Yeah. So for this file, we had no description, so it basically says no description. You can find like a lot of use cases for that. For example, if you have some categories, it's super useful to just put them into the commons, but if you don't have any categories, then it's really useful to put the template on commons that says this file needs some categories, and it will be pushed into the category that says these files don't have a category, which is quite useful from the Commons, Wikimedia Commons maintenance perspective. That should be done.
So it's better to put no description than have a blank one?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Is it better to have the words, the string, no description than actually a
No,
blank?
that's a bad example.
Yeah.
We just simply should go with
Yeah.
nothing. But I just want to show you that if you have like, for example, you can say that original file didn't have any examples, for example, any description. For example, on there was an upload from the Bundesarchive, and there had a separate field which called the original description. So sometimes the description of file is biased by the era that the file was created. So sometimes we can indicate that this file had this original description by the archive in the 1930s or something. But we can also say that this file don't have like any description, or I don't know.
It's good author name.
Yeah.
Author.
Yeah, or the author is, if there is no author, we can go this template that author is unknown or something. And there's also a button to preview. So there is this weird option on Wikimedia Commons that you can view. Yes, preview the generated wiki text. So if there's it's called expand template. So if you put the input wiki text, you can see actually how it will look on Wikimedia Commons, which is quite good, because for example, we thought that there is a template for some institution. Obviously there isn't, but we can double check for the typos, because some templates are with some huge or weird names, and we don't want to like go for searching for someone with a bot that can correct our typo before upload. And since this program can handle like hundreds of files uploaded at once, it will be a bit painful to fix it afterwards. So yeah, that's the option. As you can see, we also didn't set the license, so there's in our spreadsheet there's a thing for us that well, actually it's not about license, it's about the categories. So that's the same checks that for the categories. If we have some content, just take the categories and put it into the category, and if not, just put this template that basically says no categories. There is no checker for like licensing things like this, so probably you should be aware that this step is the last step that you can actually check before upload. So you probably need to make sure that, for example, the license is not missed, because otherwise some angry person from Commons will say that it will go straight into delete if it cannot be filled. So from that perspective, it makes more sense. It makes the most sense to have all these files uploaded by bit experienced person of Commons. But for like small like sample, if you want to ask someone from some organization to upload it, just say, yeah, can you like copy this huge spreadsheet into, like, make a copy and just leave the first 2 rows, so you can make sure that if you uploaded these 2 files, everything is okay, and once it's done, just remove these first 2 columns from the second template and just upload the rest. So that's what I recommend, mostly. And the next one is basically to log in. And there is some issue for the 2-factor authentication people, because for some time for 2-factor authentication. I'll just explain in a second that there is an option on Wikimedia for some people to log in via user password, and then you need to put this special code from your mobile, for example, just to for the security reasons, just as Google does with the SMS files. So probably you don't need to care about that, but just in case. I probably don't remember my password right now, but after logging, if everything is fine, you will just go to the upload page when it's just an upload button, and that's basically it. Probably I have some screenshots for that, but I'm not quite sure. Upload here or here. Yeah, we don't need that. Yeah, there are some screenshots. Yeah, any thoughts, questions, ideas from experienced users?
What's the quantity? How many?
How many you can upload at once? How many
maximum
at once?
I would not upload more than 5,000.
5,000. It's okay.
I'll go not more than 500 at a time from the scale, just from the scale, but.
And what's the size, maximum size of image?
It very much depends on your computer.
Yes.
In general, we should probably say 500. But what you can do, you can have a large spreadsheet and then split it into smaller pieces.
Yes. So the first limit is the probably limit on RAM on your computer, since the program will go huge if the file is huge.
No, because when you are using the upload wizard, yes, it's going to 100.
Yes.
100
Yes.
maximum.
Here,
it's go.
yeah, you can go thousands at once, but from the scale perspective, it makes more sense to do some smaller batches. But there's probably no limit. If the machine is powerful and the internet is good enough to like handle the hours of uploads at once, because it will take like, I don't know, the whole day, for example, to upload a lot of stuff.
What about the size of the images?
That's only limited to commons. So now we have like at least 100 megabytes per
100
file.
megabytes, yes.
Per file?
Yes. It's probably now up to,
What is?
I'm not quite sure there is a limit. From the perspective of like single JPEG file,
Yeah.
that we are not limited anyway.
Like 3 dpi, 600 dpi, doesn't matter?
No.
The dpi?
No. There is probably, we have like
It takes more space. Huh.
It's up to Wikimedia Commons actually limited, because we are just using the API, which is the programmatic way we are communicating. The program communicates with Wikimedia Commons. I think like few 100 megabytes per single file is totally doable. So we don't have limits. And if there is a limits, we can write to technical people who can upload it like this super huge file the other way, but besides that, yeah.
So I've been using Pattypan quite a lot, and there's certain kind of errors where I don't completely understand what goes wrong, but there's one thing that I think I've noticed consistently is that when I had to convert really big TIFF files into JPEGs, that it tends to crash on
that's probably
we have that issue noted.
This is probably, it tries to generate this icon, and when the file is thousands and thousands, that's probably that component is probably crashing, right? On this page, on chat.
When it's running actually it crashes.
So
I think it's a common with the TIFF format even, because I know that portrait programs uploading things to Wikimedia Commons sometimes crash on TIFF files because their metadata is sometimes in XML. Parts of that breaks things.
Well, I mean, but it was always a JPEG file, you know, after it had been converted from TIFF.
Interesting.
So
I think it's because of format of metadata.
For the future,
so the metadata of the TIFF is then
it's breaking somewhere.
For the future reference, on the on the welcome screen there is a link to log file, and this is it basically goes into the folder, and here you'll find a file called pattypan.log, and what it really does is it just saves some systematic information that it may be useful for programmers if something like completely crashes. So for us, it's the most reliable way to check what actually happened. So if there is something, you can send it to us, and we will try to figure out what's happening, since there's like a lot of edge cases sometimes. The program works on like Windows and Macs and Linuxes, so each platform have sometimes some different implementations, which are just harder to debug sometimes.
Thanks.
Yeah. Fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have some Pattypan stickers, like a lot of them. So I will just leave it here, or leave, just spam it.
Stickers.
With the logo.
I'll use some cards if you also prefer.
Oh, sorry. Pardon me. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry, I was late. The other session was
It's.
and I couldn't manage to install it maybe because I was instructed. So
Okay.
would you mind telling me what I should
Yeah. So if the easiest way is just go to the page on Commons.
Commons.
Yeah. So there's a page on Commons called Commons.
Yes.
you can go here and there is a link to command here, yes. On the very
Okay.
and here on the very bottom, there is a simple manual, and from here, so in order to install there is it requires Java software to be on the machine.
Yes, I already downloaded the jar, but then I thought it was some data jar that I learned. But it didn't say something
Still not fun. Yeah. Okay. So.
Because it is here, right? So there you
That's
see that there's
fine.
Pattypan
That is
jar.
fine. It usually means that it's an older version of Java. Can I just quickly check what we have here?
I have 18. So my Java version is 10.
That's 14.
Yeah, we got it done.
Yes, that should be no problem.
Looks like a only bill.
Yeah. That's the thing. So the problem is that on Linux there is no Java per se. The open version. And yeah. And I haven't like the information from anyone before that on Ubuntu it's not working.
This is the latest Ubuntu. This is 18.04.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
I'm going to take you to the elderly crowd. I hope it will work out.
Yeah, we'll see. That would be interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, hope so. They're eager.
I'm not quite sure what I can do with this at this point. If you have a GitHub account,
I do, yeah.
yeah. So just create a new ticket, and maybe Albin can take a look at that since I kind of have no clue. Oh, someone left. It's yours, okay?
Yeah, that's mine, that's
Okay.
mine, yes. So here's the GitHub page, right? In the issues?
Yes.
New issue. But I was just supposed to download the jar or
Yes.
the whole thing?
No, jar is fine.
Just the jar.
Yeah.
And Ubuntu 18.04, yeah?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, this is preloaded since some
I
time.
know. Just delete this.
Yeah, that would be.
And you're right, which Java? No?
Yeah. Yeah, we need to check that. So the latest Ubuntu is shipped with this version.